Nobody ever questioned why young veterinarian Dr. Ethan Mitchell worked such long hours at his small animal clinic in downtown Portland. At 26, he was quiet, methodical, and kept to himself. The neighbors had grown accustomed to seeing lights burning in the Riverside Animal Hospital well past midnight. They assumed he was simply dedicated to his craft, maybe catching up on paperwork or caring for overnight patients. Dr. Mitchell had earned a reputation as competent but unremarkable. Pet owners appreciated his gentle manner with their animals and his reasonable fees, but he never engaged in small talk. He arrived early, left late, and lived alone in a modest apartment 3 blocks from the clinic. His staff consisted of one part-time veterinary technician, Sarah Chun, who worked mornings and rarely stayed past 3 o'clock. The clinic itself occupied the ground floor of a converted brownstone building. The waiting room was small but clean, with worn vinyl chairs and outdated magazines. The examination rooms were functional rather than modern, equipped with basic veterinary tools and supplies. What visitors couldn't see was the basement level that Dr. Mitchell had converted into something entirely different from a typical veterinary storage area. On Tuesday morning, October 15th, Dr. Mitchell arrived at his usual time of 6:30 a.m. He unlocked the front door, disabled the alarm system, and began his routine of checking on the 3 overnight patients. A golden retriever recovering from surgery, an elderly cat with kidney issues, and a young beagle being treated for poisoning after eating something toxic in a local park. Sarah arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, carrying her usual coffee and breakfast sandwich. She had worked for Dr. Mitchell for almost 2 years and had grown comfortable with his quiet demeanor. He was never unfriendly, just reserved. She handled most of the client interactions while he focused on medical procedures and treatment plans. The morning proceeded normally with routine appointments. Mrs. Henderson brought in her Persian cat for vaccinations. The Kowalski family arrived with their new puppy for a wellness check. Dr. Mitchell worked efficiently, speaking softly to the animals and providing clear instructions to their owners. Nothing seemed unusual about the day. Around 11:30 a.m., Dr. Mitchell received a call on his personal cell phone while examining a border collie with a suspicious limp. Sarah noticed him step into the back room to take the call, which wasn't entirely unusual. What was different was the expression on his face when he returned. His typically calm demeanor had shifted to something she couldn't quite identify. Alert, focused, almost predatory. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I need you to reschedule the afternoon appointments. Something urgent has come up." She looked at him with concern. "Is everything okay, Dr. Mitchell? You look pale." "I'm fine. Just reschedule them for tomorrow or Thursday. Tell the clients I had a family emergency." Sarah nodded and began making calls while Dr. Mitchell disappeared into the basement. She had always assumed the lower level contained supplies and equipment, though she had never been invited down there. Dr. Mitchell kept it locked and handled all inventory management himself. In the basement, Dr. Mitchell's transformation was complete. The space bore no resemblance to a veterinary storage area. Instead, it housed sophisticated laboratory equipment that would have been more appropriate in a government research facility. Biosafety cabinets lined one wall, their HEPA filters humming quietly. Centrifuges, microscopes, and spectrometry equipment occupied custom-built workbenches. A secure communication setup allowed encrypted contact with agencies that didn't officially exist. Dr. Ethan Mitchell wasn't just a veterinarian. For the past 4 years, he had served as a civilian contractor for the CDC's Biodefense Rapid Response Unit. His veterinary training provided perfect cover for his real work: early detection and analysis of biological weapons and naturally occurring disease outbreaks that could threaten national security. The call he had received came from Dr. Rebecca Torres, his handler at the CDC. Her voice had been tight with controlled urgency. "Ethan, we have a situation developing in your area. Local wildlife officials are reporting unusual bird deaths in Laurelhurst Park. All species, sudden onset, no obvious environmental cause. We need immediate analysis." Dr. Mitchell pulled on his Level 2 biosafety equipment and began preparing sample collection kits. His veterinary credentials allowed him access to dead animals without raising suspicion, making him an ideal field agent for biological threat assessment. Over the years, he had investigated everything from suspicious livestock deaths that suggested agroterrorism to unusual pet illnesses that might indicate bioweapon testing. Most cases turned out to be natural phenomena, disease outbreaks, environmental contamination, or simple coincidences. But 3 times in 4 years, his analysis had uncovered genuine threats. Once, a genetically modified strain of avian influenza that someone had released deliberately. Another time, experimental toxins that had leaked from an unauthorized research facility. Each discovery had prevented larger disasters while maintaining complete secrecy about the true nature of the investigations. Dr. Mitchell loaded his equipment into his veterinary van, which contained hidden compartments for specialized gear. To any observer, he appeared to be a conscientious veterinarian responding to reports of sick animals. The deception was perfect because it was largely true. He was going to help animals, just not in the way people assumed. Laurelhurst Park was a 30-acre green space in southeast Portland, popular with joggers, dog walkers, and families. When Dr. Mitchell arrived, he found the scene cordoned off by Portland Parks and Recreation officials who were telling visitors that the area was temporarily closed for routine maintenance. 3 park employees stood near a cluster of trees where the dead birds had been discovered. "Are you the veterinarian?" asked David Kim, the park supervisor who had made the initial report. "Thank God you're here. This is unlike anything I've seen in 15 years of park management." Dr. Mitchell surveyed the scene with practiced eyes. Approximately 40 birds of various species lay dead within a roughly circular area about 50 feet in diameter. Crows, sparrows, pigeons, even a few ducks from the nearby pond. No obvious signs of trauma or struggle. They appeared to have simply dropped dead simultaneously. "When did you first notice them?" Dr. Mitchell asked, pulling on latex gloves. "This morning around 9 a.m. Jogger called it in. But here's the strange part. They weren't here yesterday evening when we did our final rounds. All these deaths happened overnight." Dr. Mitchell knelt beside the nearest bird, a crow that showed no external signs of injury or disease. He carefully collected tissue samples and placed them in sterile containers, working with the methodical precision that characterized all his actions. To the watching park employees, he appeared to be conducting a standard necropsy investigation. What they couldn't see was the sophisticated analysis he was performing in real time. The portable testing kit hidden in his veterinary bag could detect dozens of biological agents within minutes. As he worked, he was screening for everything from natural toxins to engineered pathogens that could represent bioweapons. 15 minutes into his investigation, the preliminary results confirmed his worst suspicions. The birds had died from exposure to a modified strain of botulinum toxin, specifically, a variant that had been engineered for enhanced lethality and environmental stability. This was not a natural occurrence. Dr. Mitchell maintained his calm exterior while his mind raced through the implications. Someone had deployed a bioweapon in a public park in Portland. The fact that it had affected only birds suggested either a test run or a failed attempt at something larger. Either way, the threat was immediate and serious. He completed his sample collection while mentally cataloging every detail that might provide clues about the perpetrator. The circular distribution pattern suggested aerial deployment, possibly from a drone. The overnight timing indicated someone with knowledge of park schedules. The choice of Laurelhurst Park, with its diverse bird population and regular human traffic, suggested either local knowledge or careful reconnaissance. "I'll need to take these samples back to my lab for analysis," Dr. Mitchell told the park supervisor. "In the meantime, keep this area sealed. Don't let anyone enter, especially children or dogs. I should have preliminary results by this evening." As he drove back to his clinic, Dr. Mitchell activated the secure communication system in his van. Dr. Torres answered immediately. "Status report, Ethan. Confirmed bioweapon deployment. Modified botulinum toxin, engineered variant. Aerial distribution in Laurelhurst Park sometime between sunset last night and 9 a.m. this morning. Approximately 40 bird casualties. No human exposure detected yet." There was a pause before Dr. Torres responded. "Jesus. Okay, we're escalating this immediately. FBI is being notified. How long until you can complete full analysis?" 2 hours for comprehensive identification, maybe 3 for origin determination. The strain markers should tell us if this came from a known source. Do it. And Ethan, watch yourself. If someone deployed this in your backyard, they might know who you are. Dr. Mitchell had considered the same possibility. His cover identity as a veterinarian was solid, but intelligence agencies weren't the only ones capable of careful observation and deduction. Someone with sufficient resources and motivation could potentially identify him as more than he appeared to be. Back at the clinic, Sarah was surprised by his quick return. How did it go at the park? Were you able to help with the bird situation? Still investigating, he replied, carrying his equipment toward the basement stairs. I'll be downstairs for the rest of the afternoon. Please hold all calls unless it's an absolute emergency. In his laboratory, Dr. Mitchell began the detailed analysis that would determine exactly what they were dealing with. The modified botulinum toxin was sophisticated. Whoever had created it possessed advanced knowledge of molecular biology and access to specialized equipment. This wasn't the work of an amateur or a lone actor with a chemistry set.as. The testing equipment hummed through its cycles. Dr. Mitchell cross-referenced the strain characteristics against databases of known biological weapons research. The genetic signatures suggested possible origins in several countries with active bioweapons programs, but the modifications were unique. Someone had taken existing research and improved upon it. 3 hours later, he had his answer. The toxin was a hybrid of strains from at least 2 different research programs, combined with novel modifications that enhanced both lethality and environmental persistence. The work was brilliant, terrifying, and pointed to a threat more sophisticated than anything he had encountered in 4 years of biodefense work. His secure phone rang. Dr. Torres didn't wait for pleasantries. FBI is en route to your location. Agent Patricia Hayes. She's read into your cover identity. She'll want a full briefing on your findings. Rebecca, this is bigger than a field test. Whoever created this strain has capabilities that exceed most state actors. The molecular engineering required suggests a team of experts with access to cutting-edge research. That's what we're afraid of. Hayes will coordinate with you on the investigation. And Ethan, this doesn't leave the inner circle. No local law enforcement, no state agencies. Federal response only. Dr. Mitchell understood. The existence of engineered bioweapons in American cities would cause panic that could be more dangerous than the weapons themselves. The investigation would proceed quietly, under cover of routine activities, while the real work happened in shadows. Agent Hayes arrived 40 minutes later, presenting herself as a CDC official investigating the bird deaths. She was a compact woman in her early 40s with graying hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Sarah had left for the day, giving them privacy for their conversation. Dr. Mitchell? Agent Hayes, CDC Atlanta. I understand you've made some concerning discoveries. He led her to the basement laboratory, where her professional demeanor shifted to one of obvious surprise at the sophisticated equipment. This is not a typical veterinary setup, she observed. No, it's not. Let me show you what we're dealing with. For the next hour, Dr. Mitchell walked Agent Hayes through his analysis. She absorbed the technical details with the fluency of someone well-versed in biological threats, asking pointed questions that demonstrated her expertise. So your assessment is that we're looking at a terrorist organization with state-level capabilities? She finally asked. That's the most likely scenario. But there's another possibility that worries me more. Which is that this came from one of our own research programs. The molecular signatures include techniques that have only been published in classified journals. Whoever did this had access to cutting-edge American research. Agent Hayes was quiet for a long moment. You're suggesting an inside threat. I'm suggesting we can't rule it out. The timing, the location, the choice of target, everything about this feels like someone testing our response capabilities. As they discussed the implications, neither of them noticed the figure watching from across the street. Through high-powered binoculars, the observer noted Agent Hayes' arrival, her federal vehicle, and the duration of her visit. The watcher had suspected that the quiet veterinarian was more than he appeared, and this confirmation would change everything about the next phase of the operation. Dr. Mitchell and Agent Hayes agreed on next steps. Expanded surveillance of the park area, discreet inquiries into recent research facility security, and preparation for additional deployments. The investigation would continue under the cover of routine disease control measures. After Hayes left, Dr. Mitchell remained in his laboratory, analyzing additional samples and cross-referencing data. It was nearly midnight when he finally locked up and headed home to his apartment. He didn't notice the sedan that followed him at a discreet distance, or the fact that his building was under observation. The next morning brought a development that changed everything. Dr. Mitchell arrived at his clinic to find Sarah visibly shaken, standing beside two men in expensive suits who clearly weren't pet owners. "Dr. Mitchell." The taller man stepped forward. "Agent David Chun, FBI. We need to speak with you immediately." "Of course. Is this about yesterday's investigation?" "In part. But we have a more pressing concern. 3 hours ago, similar bird deaths were reported in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco and Central Park in New York City. Identical pattern, identical toxin signatures. This isn't an isolated incident." Dr. Mitchell felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning temperature. "Coordinated deployment. They're testing response times and capabilities across multiple cities. That's our assessment. And Dr. Mitchell, there's something else. We have reason to believe your cover may have been compromised. We found surveillance equipment positioned to monitor your clinic." The implication hit him immediately. Someone knew who he was and what he did. The quiet veterinarian who worked late nights had attracted the wrong kind of attention. "What kind of timeline are we looking at?" he asked. "Unknown. But we're implementing emergency protocols. Your extraction is being arranged, effective immediately." Dr. Mitchell looked around the clinic that had been his cover for 4 years. Sarah stood nearby, confused and frightened by the sudden appearance of federal agents in her workplace. The animals in the back rooms needed care. His life as Dr. Ethan Mitchell, veterinarian, was ending without warning or ceremony. "I need to make arrangements for my patients," he said. Agent Chun nodded. "You have 2 hours. After that, Dr. Ethan Mitchell disappears, and you become someone else, somewhere else." As federal agents secured the building and arranged for the transfer of his animal patients to other veterinary practices, Dr. Mitchell reflected on the strange turns his life had taken. He had joined the biodefense program to protect people from exactly this kind of threat. Now, because he had been successful at his job, he had become a target himself. The quiet veterinarian who had worked unnoticed for 4 years was about to vanish, leaving behind only questions and a mystery that would puzzle the neighborhood for years to come. But somewhere else, under a different name, his real work would continue. Because the threat was real, the enemy was sophisticated, and people like Dr. Mitchell were all that stood between ordinary citizens and the biological nightmares that others might unleash. BY noon. The Riverside Animal Hospital stood empty. A sign on the door explained that Dr. Mitchell had been called away by a family emergency and that all patients had been transferred to other veterinary practices. The neighbors who had grown accustomed to seeing lights burning late into the night would wonder for weeks why the building remained dark. Sarah Chin found herself unemployed but with a generous severance package and a recommendation letter that would help her find work immediately. She never learned the truth about her former employer, though she sometimes wondered why federal agents had been interested in a veterinarian who treated dogs and cats. The investigation into the bioweapon deployments continued under different leadership, with agents who had no connection to the compromised Dr. Mitchell identity. The threat was eventually neutralized, though the details remained classified at levels that most government officials would never see. And somewhere in another city, under another name, a quiet professional continued his work of standing guard against the biological threats that most people never knew existed. Because in a world where science could create both miracles and nightmares, someone had to be watching in the shadows, ready to respond when ordinary people needed protection from extraordinary dangers. The veterinarian's secret had been revealed, but his mission continued in a different form, in a different place, under a different name. Some battles are fought in the light, with parades and medals and public recognition. Others happen in the shadows, known only to those who fight them and those who sleep safely because the fight never ends.